Hebrews 11, verse 6. But without faith, it is impossible to walk with God and please Him.
It's good.
For whoever comes near to God must necessarily believe that God exists, and that He rewards those. Such a beautiful word. He rewards those He gives success to. He does something tangible that adds to your life. He rewards those who earnestly and diligently seek Him. You guys can take a seat. I want you to turn to your neighbor and say this. Risk or reputation? Say it. Risk or reputation? What is your concern? What are you more concerned about in life? Risk or reputation? That's a good question, isn't it? Because let's just be honest, how many people constantly are thinking about keeping their reputation, right? How they look, how they present themselves, the posture, how they're perceived. So many people care about the perception that others have about them, right? Come on, how many care? We all do to some degree, right? Come on, right? We all do. How many would say that they would put risk before reputation? Usually a small percentage of people, because, the risks that we are called to take usually involve some level of losing our reputation. There is always a loss of reputation in life when there is a risk involved. There's always a loss of reputation because, let's say for the businessman, you step out and this is your 7th business test. But you've launched 6 businesses, they all failed. Now you're on your 7th business plan. Well, the more failure that you have in life, the potential more loss of reputation you have and people's ability to trust in you and your ideas. But I would rather lose reputation in life in front of people, gaining it with God by taking the risks that He wants me to take. Because you never have success without failure. It is impossible. You never have success without failure in life. There has to be risk involved. And I want to spell faith today. Let's talk about faith, baby. Let's talk about you. You remember that song? That was a real song. Let's talk about faith. Yeah, it's all about faith, right? That was the song, right? But that's really what our whole life is about, right? Whether you believe in Jesus or not, you have faith in something. You have faith that you evolved from a monkey. Okay, you have faith that you were born and came out of a rock and a big bang that exploded and that you evolved and some of you still look like monkeys and you that's your faith. And hey, that's your faith. Hey, God bless you. And I believe if you're here today, you're gonna encounter something incredible. It's not King Kong. Okay, you're going to encounter the King, Jesus Christ. And let me just tell you, you were created with a purpose. You weren't created mindlessly. You weren't created like a monkey. You were created with a purpose, a divine intention. You really were. How many believe that you're here for a purpose? You may not fully understand it yet, but that's the joy and journey of our life, that we don't understand everything. And if we did, we wouldn't need faith. Faith is the currency that keeps us going in the midst of not understanding. Everybody wants to understand everything. And there's fear that's always attached to the unknown. But fear is the opposite of faith. The reality of living faith is that even in the unknown, you keep on going. Because faith gives you perspective of the end goal, even when you don't understand. And how many feel like they're in a season right now where they don't understand everything that's going on? That is the most beautiful place to be at. If you did understand everything, you're probably in a dangerous spot. Because part of this journey is that in the midst of not knowing what's next, sometimes we keep on going. We keep on faithing it until we make it. Risk or reputation, what is your concern? I would say, and I've heard people say this at times, like, there's no risk. Like, faith is not really a risk, because when it's faith, God, but let's just speak at a level where we all understand, because most people don't understand faith. They don't. Well, what does faith look like in this moment or in this moment? Like, they don't. Let's just be honest. Like, most people have no grid of what faith really looks like in their life. But they understand what risk looks like, right? When you step out and you get a new job, or you step out and you make a new friend, or or you're about to get married, all those things. I mean, all those things involve risk at some level, right? I mean, how many understand that in the context of marriage? Like when you got married, you can't say that you didn't have any doubt or wonder in your mind. It's just human nature. You may act like it, but you're a liar. There is always an element of like the what if, right? Like the what if. Well, what if? Well, yeah, but what if? That's why at covenant, in that moment, you say in sickness and in health, but what if you don't like the sickness that person has? And you don't want to stick around anymore. Well, hey, there's always a what if scenario. Like what if? What if I get married and then I get hit by a car? What if? It's part of the risk, right? You make these steps in life, these leaps in life, even in the midst of the what if. That's what faith looks like. It's risk. Faith equals risks in life. But rewards can come with risk, often at the expense of reputation. Rewards always come. What happened? We got too dark here. I don't know what happened. Rewards come at the expense of reputation in the midst of risk. Can we put the lights up a little bit? I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, darkness. I got to speak light over you guys. I don't know. Okay, there we go. Reputation. Let's talk about reputation. The beliefs or opinions that are generally held about someone or something. The beliefs or opinions that are generally held about someone or something. I really want to share my heart on a few things. We got a little bit of a buzz. I don't know if we can deal with that on the side stage here. But reputation is a big word, right? Like we talked about this, we opened it up with this. It's a big word for a lot of us, and there's something about keeping a reputation that's important, right? You got to keep your reputation at work. You got to be trusted, right? Like your reputation precedes you. Like it's an important thing. People look at your references when you apply for a new job. They look at your reputation. Like there is an important element of reputation that we all need to keep, and even from a biblical standpoint, like we see it over and over again about keeping a good reputation. But really, keeping a good reputation in the eyes of who? That's the question. Like, who do you want to keep your good reputation toward? Do you want to appease the religious people in your life that are tied up and like bound up, and they can't see past anything outside of their religious paradigm? They don't like faith. They don't like risk. They don't like rocking the boat. They want to keep everything the same. They want to have the blue carpet at church and the long pew. You can't just rock the boat a little bit. There's a few people, or there's a group of people, or there's a sphere of influence that you need to keep your influence with, or your reputation with, but there is a whole other group of people that you're not really living for. You know what I'm talking about? And even above and beyond that, like your reputation in heaven, how does that stand? Because really, God knows everything about you more than people do, right? So you can wear the facade of having a good reputation. You can look good, sound good, be good. Kind of like the religious people in Scripture, they look like whitewashed tombs. But inside they were full of dead man's bones, it says. They looked good on the outside. They were cleaned up. They looked perfect, but man, they were like a wreck on the inside. They were disconnected on the inside. There was no relationship. You hear what I'm saying? And so you can hide. See, insecurity puts on a facade of reputation. Insecurity really invites this perception of a good reputation. Because insecurity hides behind the facade of a good reputation. Insecurity hides behind. So you might be a really insecure person, and you're so concerned about you and what other people think about you that you don't operate in faith or take the risks you're called to, because you want to keep people's perception of you a certain way. That's a dangerous place. That's a scary place to live, because you're going to live robbed of all the good that you could live with and in life. You hear what I'm saying? Reputation, the beliefs or opinions that are generally held about someone or something, a widespread belief that someone or something has a particular habit or characteristic. Just before I move on, I want to just address one thing, because in the house, as a leader, we're called to keep a good reputation. Paul instructed Timothy, hey, like, don't just appoint any leader. Don't be hasty. That's what he said. Don't be hasty in laying on of hands. What he was meaning by that is, like, don't just appoint anybody into a leadership position, because here's some criteria, okay? And I just want to lay it out there for you. Verse 1 of chapter 3 of 1 Timothy. Here's another statement you may trust. If anyone is seeking a position, an overseer in the church, And this can be applied to, I believe, any area of life, any area of management, oversight, even in the business world as well. He desires an honorable and important work. In other words, like, it's a good thing that you desire this. But verse 2, here are the qualifications to look for in an overseer. A spotless reputation. A spotless reputation. The husband of one wife, sober-minded, one wife. Sober-minded, sensible, respectable, welcoming to strangers. I love that. Allowing them into his home. And gifted to teach. Now, this is specifically talking about in a management oversight position in the house of God, right? And in this culture, I mean, the house of God was such a valued, massive part of society. It wasn't like it is today. It's a totally different scenario. But this, I believe, amen, if we applied this into every area of culture, we'd have healthy culture. I just believe that. We'd have healthy culture. So it says here, welcoming to strangers, allowing them into his home, and gifted to teach, because you can't multiply what you can't teach. You can't multiply what's inside of you if you have no language for it. And really, teaching is giving your impartation or deposit in you language. It's giving what's inside of you. It's like the apprentice, or somebody apprenticing with somebody. If they can't explain to you how they got A, B, and C, and D, you're not going to learn very much by apprenticing with that individual. If they can't teach it, they can't articulate it, they can't explain it. They say, no, I just do it. I just do it. No, just do it. You can't multiply what's inside of you and somebody else with that attitude. Number 3, disqualify any drunk or violent man. Look for a gentleman. No belligerent fellow can follow this calling, and he should be free from money lust. He should exert good control over his own households. In other words, it's a focus on private life too. If you want a public life of leadership, focus on your private life. If you can't manage your own household, that is going to trickle and multiply into the house of God or into any environment. I don't even care if it's a business or whatever. If you can't manage your own household, it will trickle in and multiply into any sphere that you're in leadership. And his children should obey and honor him. If someone can't manage his own household, then how can he take care of God's family? He mustn't be someone recently converted. What that means is recently coming into relationship with Jesus Christ. It has to be, can't just be too recent. Otherwise, he may become arrogant and fall into the devil's condemnation. Verse 7, he should also be respected for his character and known as an honorable person by people outside of the church, so as to avoid the trips, traps, and pitfalls of the devil. So, one of the things that it's talking about here is the reputation inside and outside. Inside and outside. And I think it's very important that we understand that, yes, it's good to have reputation. While it's good to have a good reputation, we cannot forfeit the risks and the faith we're called to walk in just to appease people. Because heaven is watching. It's one thing to be in good character and have all these things in order. It's good. We're healthy, man. We need that. But there are risks in life that you are called to take that's going to rattle the boat a little bit. That's going to rock the boat of your life a little bit. That's going to make people think that you're crazy and that you're nuts and that you're totally out there and you're about to fall off a cliff. You're about to nosedive into the ground and everything's just going to fall apart. Sometimes it's in those moments where you ruin your reputation. But when you get a hold of the reward of the risk in life, often it's at the expense of your reputation. Are you hearing what I'm talking about this morning? I heard this leader say to me one time, if you want to become a man or a woman that walks in the supernatural, then you must become a man or woman of no reputation. You must become a man or a woman of no reputation. In the sense of I'd rather step out in faith to honor God than worry about what people think of me. It's one thing to keep my character in line. I want to keep that reputation there. But man, when it comes to my faith journey, I'm going to do what he wants me to do. I'm going to say what he wants me to say. I'm going to step out, and it might not always go well with people, but I'd rather it go well with God than it go well with people. Do you understand the difference? There's good reputation, there's bad reputation. But ultimately, when you are a risk taker and you are a faith maker, you're a faith walker in life, you will often lose some reputation so that you can gain more reputation. Sometimes loss has to happen before growth happens. It's like the pruning of the tree. You got to prune back the tree before more growth can happen. Sometimes you got to take away a few things before you can really grow into all that you're called to be. Sometimes loss is the greatest preparation for gain. Some of you feel like you're losing right now. Hey, maybe it's a good thing you're losing right now because maybe God's setting you up for something. Maybe God's preparing your spiritual tree. He's setting you up for something great in life. And I want to talk about today the reward of risk, so to speak, the reward of risk. And I want to give you three things, but before I go there, I want to go back to Hebrews 11 really quick. Hebrews 11, verse, I think I'm going to do a whole series on Hebrews 11 because there's something about this. I feel like on a whole right now in the church, and I get to travel and I get to see the different cultures and speak to the different people within the body of Christ. And I see holes in the area of understanding faith. Understanding faith. Like, imagine if every one of you in this room, just imagine, okay? Just a few of you in this room, if you trusted God in every area of your life, your finances, your friendships, your relationships, your careers, everything, if you fully trusted God, what would happen? Imagine. Man, it'd be mind-blowing. What God can do with somebody who has faith in Him in all of these areas. But hey, let's just know we're all on a journey that maybe right now, hey, it's taking a big leap for me just to trust Him in this. That's okay. There's no condemnation. You're on a journey. I'm just trying to get your perspective to go a little beyond where you're at into the future and say, hey, this is what you could be. This is what you could be. Don't just focus on what you are or are struggling with right now. Focus on what you could be and let that be the carrot on the end of the stick pulling you forward in life and advancing you quicker. You don't have to go so slow. Hebrews 11, verse 5, by an act of faith, Enoch skipped death completely. You know that with faith, you can skip through some processes that you don't have to go through. Why? I'm not saying that purpose is void of process or faith is void of process, but when you're in faith, you're listening to God. There are things that you can do and walk through and move through different than if you weren't. You're doing your own thing, going to control your own world, then yeah, you might walk around in a few circles a couple times. We see the evidence of that in Scripture. The whole nation walked around in circles for 40 years. You can walk around in your circle for 40 years, and you may not even know you're walking around in circles, which is the scary thing, right? Which is the scary thing. But when you start listening to God and trusting God, even when it feels like a risk, you're going to lose everything. You're going to lose your friends. You're going to lose your career. You might lose your career. But man, hey, I'm only here for one purpose and one purpose alone, and that's to figure out who I am eternally. I ain't coming back as a frog or a monkey. Hey, I'm coming back. I'm coming back here with a new body, resurrected body, hanging out with God the rest of my life. So this is just practice. So if I can learn to practice faith here and now and take these risks I need to take, man, what I can access here, it's limitless. Whether we believe it or not, John 10, verse 10, it's a true statement. He came to give you life and life abundant. The devil came to steal, kill, and destroy. Some of you have been robbed. The devil has come to steal, kill. He's like robbed you, man. He's robbed you of faith. He's robbed you of life. He's robbed you of relationships. He's robbed you of trust. You're full of anxiety. You're depressed. He's robbed you so much. And maybe you've let him rob you, or maybe you feel like circumstances just came against you. Whatever the case may be, God came through the form of His Son to give you an abundant life. The word means a super abundant life. A super abundant life. So, hey, what would it be like to start declaring that over your life? I am. Hey, these areas of lack right now, hey, I see abundance in the midst of them. Declaring over them. You're saying, well, that's denial. No, it's not. It's called faith. The same faith that I have to go to the gym when I don't feel like it, because I know that the result of it is good for my body. You see what I'm talking about? It's no different in the kingdom, you guys. We can't so super spiritualize it and say, well, this is how faith works over here. It's feeling. No, if I don't feel it, I'm not going to, over here, I live my whole other life. I go to work every day, 9 to 5, like you do, right? You don't feel like going to work every day, do you? But you do, right? Why? Because you know the reward of it, right? Sometimes you do what you have to do in life to get what you want in life. Sometimes you have to do what you need to do over and over again until you get to a place where you get to do what you want to in life. And there's faith in all of that. Whether you believe in Jesus or not, you are living in some level of faith. You are taking some level of risk every day. You getting into your car, driving down that highway, you're taking some level of risk. Risk is everywhere. So what does it look like in the context of faith? By an act of faith, Enoch skipped death completely. They looked all over and couldn't find him because God had taken him. We know on the basis of reliable testimony that before he was taken, he pleased God. Interesting, isn't that? Before he was taken, he pleased God. We don't even know what he did. There's not really much evidence of what Enoch did. Enoch was in a time where it was crazy. All kinds of crazy. It was like a horror film on the earth back then. Some of you are like, what are you talking about? Just read Genesis 6. You'll see. It was like a horror film. It's like an X-rated horror film. Enoch lived in that time, and he somehow, in the midst of the craziness, before the flood happened, he pleased God. He just walked in faith. He pleased God. And then it goes on and says this, it's impossible. It's impossible. Say it's impossible. To please God apart from what? Faith. And why? Because anyone who wants to approach God must believe both that he exists and he cares enough to respond to those who what? Seek him. Other translation, Amplified, will say this. Believe that God exists and that he rewards those who earnestly and diligently seek him. This word for reward means paying what is due. Becoming a paymaster, paying what is due. God is going to give you what is due to you when faith is present and active in your life. There is stuff that's due to you. It's there. It's there, right? It's in the account. It's in heaven's account. It's yours. It's your money. Okay? It's due to you. There is stuff that you haven't accessed yet. It's there. It's there for you. It's on hold for you. It's in a safety deposit box in heaven's bank. It's there. It's yours. He's even given you the key. But you don't know where it is. You don't know how to access it. Let me tell you the secret. If you want to access what is rightfully yours and you want to get what is due to you, walk in faith. Take risks in life. Fail a little bit. You're like, what do you mean fail? Fail. I'm not saying on purpose. But know that when you take a risk, you will fail. And that you're one step closer to success. You know how I learned to hear the voice of God? One of the key things that I stepped into was I learned how to hear the voice of God on the street. I didn't learn it in the confines of a church culture. I stepped out onto the streets. I sat at coffee shops and practiced saying, okay, God, I believe it. You're saying this to me. And then I would step up and to talk to people in the coffee shop, the manager, the coworker or whatever, and say, hey, I just feel like God is saying this to you. Does this make sense? Does this name make sense to you? Does this age make sense? Does this happen to you at this age? Does that make sense to you? Like I'm learning to hear the voice and recognize the voice of God. I took risks in the beginning. And hey, did I fail? Absolutely. Did I look like an idiot? Absolutely. Did I feel like I failed even at times when I didn't even fail? Absolutely. But that's part of success, right? Talk to anybody that you see out there today that you admire, and they'll tell you the same thing. Failure is one step closer to success. So let's just dummy down faith for a little bit and take the mysticism out of it, demystify it a little bit, and say, hey, faith is just like taking a risk. Now, I'm not saying do stupid stuff like, God told me to kick you in the, what? Because then you're going to get healed. Maybe, okay? Very small maybe. But if that's you, I'm getting away from you, okay? You're not coming near me, okay? But all I'm saying is there is obviously a guide. There's a guide, we need a biblical paradigm for the character of God in the midst of taking risks. But know that faith is just like risk. It's spelt just like risk. What does it mean to diligently seek God? To diligently seek him. It means to, you can put it up on the screen, emphasizing the personal intent of the seeker, the outcome intensely and personally desired by the seeker. The seeker is only as valuable as the motive which drives it. What's your motive? Why are you pursuing? What are you pursuing? That's one of the ways you can tell if it's a God risk or not. Why? Why? I'm not saying take a risk and go buy a Rolls Royce when you don't have the money to buy a Rolls Royce. That's just stupidity. There's an element of, hey, if you can answer the why question and it aligns with heaven's purpose and heaven's plan, then hey, it might just be one of the faith risks you're called to step out into. You see what I'm saying? You want to start this business? Well, is it about money or is it about people? Because if it's about people, it might be successful. If it's about money only, you might have a short-term sense of success, and then money eventually will take you out. Right? So what's the motivation? What's the end goal? Why are you doing what you're doing? I want to give you 3 things of what risk can do for you. Number 1, write this down really quick. Number 1, risk can revive you. Taking risks can revive you. Revive you. Matthew 14, verse 28 to 30. Peter, suddenly bold, said, Master, if it's really you, call me to come to you on the water. He's in this boat. It's a storm. They're all a little bit scared. They see a ghost on the water, what looks like a ghost, and it was Jesus on the water, walking on the water. And so Peter is like, he's like looking, he's like, oh my gosh, is that God? Is that Jesus? Is that Jesus? And then he calls out and says, Jesus, if that's really you, I'll take a risk. If that's really you, call to me. If that's really you, say the words and I'll step out, even though that it could be for me risking everything. First of all, I'm trusting that it's even you. What if I'm having a hallucination? What if I drank too much wine, or whatever. I mean, I'm sure Peter in his mind, he probably is doubting a little bit what he's seeing before him. He says, so, hey, if it's you, call to me and I'll take a risk. And he took a risk. And what happened? Peter did the impossible when he took the risk. Did he fail? Did he succeed? He failed and he succeeded. How did he fail? He sunk because he got his eyes off of the whole reason why he got out of the boat in the first place. If you call to me, I'll come. He got his eyes off of the reason. He got his eyes off of the why, the motivation. He got his eyes onto the problem, onto the struggle. Oh, crap, I am in trouble. I'm about to sink. What am I doing? Why did I do this? Oh, my gosh, what do my friends think about me? What is everybody going to think about me? That was a really dumb decision. Why would I do that? How can I walk in the water? I don't even believe what I'm doing right now. It must be super late. I haven't slept. What was I thinking? He started to sink. He started to sink. But he succeeded. He walked on the water. Have you ever walked on water? He walked on water. It's incredible. See, the success that comes with risk, but also oftentimes what will accompany it is failure as well, because you're learning. You're learning the ropes of faith. You're learning what risk-taking looks like. You're learning trust, which never stops. You're going to be learning that till the day that you die, so keep learning it. He said, come ahead, jumping out of the boat. Peter walked on the water to Jesus, but when he looked down at the waves churning beneath his feet, he lost his nerve and started to sink. He cried, Master, save me. I bet you in that moment, there was like a revival that happened in Peter's heart. I mean, you can't walk on water, go away from that experience and not be like, holy cow, that was so cool. Like some of you had that experience, right? I'm hearing tons of testimonies, even financially, in the last couple of weeks about people stepping out and how it's revived their heart to believe again. It's revived their trust. It's opened them up again to say, man, okay, why did I do that? Why did I doubt you? Why did I, I stepped out of the boat. I felt like I was supposed to, but then it made no sense, and I felt like everything around me was crumbling, but yet, look what you did. Like those moments, those risk-taking moments, the result of those risks, the reward of those risks, often at the expense of the ruin of your reputation, can be the very thing that revives you and opens up your heart. I had heard this testimony, multiple, but one specifically this week, of somebody that last week decided to continue to trust God with his tithe, and it didn't make any sense. It didn't make really any sense with where they were at, and they stepped out and they gave their 10% of what God had given them, because we believe that giving God your best, your first, is the most important part of our life, like we do in every area of our life. They did that, and they declared for the next day and a half or so, Philippians 4, that God will supply all of my riches. God will do this for me because of faith, because of the risk that I'm taking. And really, it's not even really a risk in the sense, because it's God's anyways, right? And I think the next day, they got a $20,000 contract. So you just never know. You just never know. You never know. Investing in these special moments. Number 2, risk can reward you, which is really the central focus of this whole encouragement. Risk can reward you. The reward for Peter in this situation was really the ability, the moment that he walked on the water. There was, I believe that Jesus saw that moment, and of all of the disciples, he said, you guys were all concerned. You guys were all concerned about your comfort, but there was one guy that just didn't care. He just didn't care about his reputation in that moment. He didn't care what he looked like. He didn't care about following the rest of you. He didn't care about following the crowd. He stepped out. He made himself known, and he was the one who walked on the water. You could have all walked on water too, but one person stepped out. One person who diligently wanted to seek me and pursue me took the risk and got the reward. You hear what I'm saying? Took the risk and got the reward. Go to Matthew 25, verse 25 really quick. I'm excited because next week we're launching a financial series. It's going to be awesome. One of my favorite topics, talking about finances in the kingdom and like the faith part of God. And it's just incredible, you guys. Incredible. I'm so excited for it, launching it next week. But I want to read this to you out of Matthew 25. You guys okay? You with me? This morning a little bit. Hang in there with me. The servant, this is the parable of the talents. Someone was given 5, someone was given 2, someone was given 1, and they were all called to multiply what they had been given. And only 2 of them multiplied what they'd been given, and the one lost even what he had been given. And so I'm going to pick it up in verse 25. It says this about the servant that hid his talent. The servant given 1,000 said, Master. Because what happened was, it's a parable story of a master who came back after he'd given this opportunity to steward what had been given to them. He comes back to see what they had done with what they had. How they had multiplied what they had, which is what Jesus will do in all of our lives, whether you believe it or not. One day you will give an account to how you stewarded what you had on the earth. What you did with what you had. Well, you didn't trust me here, you didn't trust me here. But hey, God is going to be that person for us. And it's kind of something that happens all the time if we're listening. He's always speaking into us and say, hey, you could do this a little better. You can step out more on this, steward this better. But it says this, the servant given 1,000 said, Master, I know you have high standards and hate careless ways, that you demand the best and make no allowances for error. I was afraid I might disappoint you. So I found a good hiding place and secured your money. You hear what he said there? He said, I was afraid. I was afraid of taking a risk. I was afraid of making you upset. I had fear. Fear is the opposite of faith. It's not unbelief. Fear is the opposite of faith. I was afraid, and so I withheld even what I had and hid it for fear of losing it and disappointing you. Fear will always cause you to forfeit your future every time because you're afraid of taking the risk, because you're afraid of stepping out, afraid of what reputation you might lose instead of the reputation you might gain in heaven. For fear, you end up forfeiting your future without even realizing it. And this is what happened to this guy. He has one talent. Let's call it $1,000. 1,000. And for fear, he hid even what he had, thinking that it was safe. Kept it in his savings account. I was afraid I might disappoint you. Here it is. It's safe and sound, down to the last cent. Verse 26. The master was furious. This is what he said. That's a terrible way to live. It's criminal to live cautiously like that. If you knew I was after the best, why did you do less than the best? The less than the least. The least you could have done would have been to invest the sum with the bankers, where at least I would have gotten a little interest. Take the 1,000 and give it to the one who risked the most, and get rid of this play it safe, who won't go out on a limb, throw him out into utter darkness. What an intense statement. But you know the cool thing about this thing is that if you don't use what you have, it will be taken from you and given to somebody else. It's called the transfer. It's called the holy transfer. If you don't use what you've got and you don't steward what you got, God will find somebody else to steward it incredibly and multiply it and turn it around and see it trickle over into the next generation and the next generation. That's the character of God, because he wants us to manage his wealth on the earth well. It's like kind of like dating, you know. Let's talk about dating for a second. You know, you might have felt like you've missed an opportunity. You know, sometimes if you don't seize the moment with that girl or that guy in that moment, they may be gone forever, right? Right? You were afraid that they might have rejected you. You were afraid they would have never called you. You were afraid maybe you met them online. I don't know. I mean, I was talking to someone yesterday about, man, like when I was dating, like the online thing was never normal. Like it's crazy to think. I mean, MSN was like a thing, but it wasn't a dating thing, right? I don't think MSN was does MSN still even exist today? I don't even know. Anyways, it's like back in the day of like MySpace. Remember MySpace? That was like cool back then, right? But that wasn't even a dating thing. But now you got all these dating sites, which is, hey, it's fine if you meet your wife or husband online. That's awesome. But just I had no context for it. I was having this conversation yesterday. And just like, that's kind of risky, right? I don't know about you, but it's risky. Like, I have no connection with this person. I see them online. Now with the days of Photoshop. That would be my fear, right? It's like they were completely Photoshopped. And I come in and then I feel guilty. I feel bad. Like, you were just not what I thought you were, Like, what did you do, And so like that to me is like risky. That's like a risk, man, because I feel bad. I don't want to hurt someone's feelings, but man, like you just are not that person, But all that to say, I was thinking about this yesterday and about how that is it's so risky to do that, but there could be reward in it. You never know. I know people that are married and happy today because they met online, right? You just never know. You never know. And for fear, sometimes fear will be what robs you of the great reward ahead of you and for you. But if you miss that opportunity because of fear, God will just give that person to somebody else. Somebody that will handle that person, love that person, cherish that person, honor that person. That's how it works. Risk can ruin you or it can reward you. It can ruin you or it can reward you. But the reward of risk is worth the ruin of reputation. Always remember that. The reward of risk, when it's a God-centered risk, is worth the ruin of reputation. Number 3, last point, and then we're done. Risk can reveal you. Risk can reveal you. I want you to stand up with me. I want you to stand up with me. Risk can reveal you. What do I mean by that? Stand up with me really quick. We're almost done. When you take a risk in life, you often see parts of your life that you never saw before. It reveals parts of you that you never knew before, maybe fear, insecurity, pride. It might reveal things that you never knew were in you because all of a sudden now, like, you're in this risk. You've lost some reputation. You're like, what if I made a big mistake? What if I'm going to fail, fall flat on my face? What if my future is totally forfeited in this moment? You're wondering all these things, all these what-if scenarios. What if I married the wrong person? Or what if, I wasn't supposed to have kids and supposed to be a mother, supposed to be a father? I don't know if I can do this. And you go through all of these things, but every time you take a risk, it will always reveal a new side of you. It will always take a new side of you. Some of you, the risk might be to let something go in your life, or acquire something in your life that's going to add to your life, or whatever it may be for you. But it will always reveal a side of you that you never realized before. That new job, that new position that you're taking a risk and stepping into is going to reveal a new side of you, a new level of expectation of something that's inside of you right now that you've never known before. When you become that first-time father, that first-time mother, it's going to reveal a side of you that you never knew was there. All of a sudden, you're going to realize, man, I thought I was a patient man. I really have no patience. You get what I'm saying, right? Peter, he gets out of the boat. Jesus calls to him. He walks on the water. He walks onto the water, and I bet you in that moment, because he was like the boldest of all of the 12. He was the one that was usually the most arrogant, the most wordy, kind of would talk back, and tried to argue Jesus out of dying on the cross. I mean, he did a lot of stupid things, but there was something about Peter that was genuine that Jesus loved. He was a risk taker. And I bet you in that moment when he stepped out of the boat onto the water, it probably revealed a side of Peter in front of everybody else around him that he wasn't expecting. Man, I thought I was full of faith. I thought I was not affected by the circumstances around me. I thought I would never look down. I thought I'd always keep my eyes on Jesus. I'll never deny you, Jesus. I'll never leave that connection point. But we know this to be true. Peter denied Jesus 3 times, right? But yet there was something about Peter that was so special. He was the one that voiced the initiation of the New Testament church, which is why we exist today. He was that guy that got up in Acts chapter 2 and the power of God came for the first time corporately and said, this is that which the prophet Joel prophesied about. I mean, he was that guy, but he was also the guy that tried to argue Jesus out of the crucifixion and also denied him 3 times. But he was also the guy that risked everything and walked on the water. Even though he sank, he still walked on the water. But in all those situations of taking risks, revealed a new part of him. Yeah. And once a new part of you is revealed, a new part of you can grow and mature. If you don't know what's on the inside of you and you don't have situations in life that bring those sides of you out, you never know if you have what it takes to do what you're called to do. If you're aware of something in your life, if you're aware of something that's in you right now, God with you can make you, transform you, change you, mature you in a way that he couldn't if you had no awareness of it. The worst devil is the devil that you don't know that's trying to take you out. But the devil that you do know, the thing that you do know, that you are aware of, that's trying to trip you up, man, you have power over it because you have knowledge of it. You only have power over what you have knowledge of.